Well, hey, everybody, glad to be back with you again. And today's topic is how to choose the right funnel for your product. Sounds like it's probably an important topic, David, because if you have the wrong one, I don't know that your results are going to be what you want.
Yeah, it really is. It's one of those. I see this all the time, where people are like, "Oh, webinars are dead,"
Right.
or "challenge funnels are dead," or whatever. This no longer works, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I
Writing
don't
blogs doesn't work anymore.
right, and I'm looking at it going, I don't think so because I see people still using them and using them successfully.
Right.
So it's not that they don't work. It's that you have to know when to use each type of marketing funnel.
Hmm.
And one of the people that I've always had a lot of respect for and that I've learned so much from over the years was Todd Brown. And that's,
Hmm.
you've heard me mention him before. And he is a big proponent of this as well. He will goes, all of these types of marketing funnels will work.
Right.
It's about it's like having a bunch of arrows in your quiver
Hmm.
and knowing which is the right one to pull out at the right time,
Yeah.
and knowing why is this the right choice now instead of that. And
Hmm.
so that's a little bit just kind of what we wanted to talk about today. Like, how do you know? How
Yeah.
do you know what strategy you should use to market your product or service? When do you know that? Because all of these things can work. They can all be successful. I don't believe anybody that's sitting here saying webinars are dead. Don't believe
Well,
anybody that says any of that stuff.
right. And even a few weeks ago, I went to a direct mail seminar,
Yeah.
and a lot of people think that direct mail is dead. But the thing I learned about that was even Google is using direct mail to drive people to buy their Google Ads services. So if Google, obviously
I've
a
gotten
tech
a few of
company,
those.
is saying, look, I'm going to send postcards in the mail and raise awareness or drive you to get a starter, a discount to start with Google Ads or whatever. Even something like that, that's a funnel, right? Like getting something in the mail that leads to an action that leads to a sale. This is the type of thing we're talking about. But you're right. It's so easy for people to just write off that this doesn't work or that doesn't work. And it may not work for you. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because maybe you're not using the right thing to get to the right people.
Right. 100%. That has been exactly my point of view on all of this, because you see people that say it doesn't work, but then you see the next thing in your Facebook feed is you see an ad for something using like webinars are dead, and then I see two scrolls later, here's somebody selling something using a webinar and they did a really nice job. I'm like, if they're dead, why is this person over here still using them? I'm like,
Right.
I don't think so. And
Yeah.
not to say that things don't change over time, they do. There
Hmm.
are things that happen and shift, but there are also still fundamental truths as well that still work.
Right.
And most all of these types of funnels still work. It's just knowing when to deploy each one into your campaign. So, a few of the things that we wanted to talk about today is the first one is like, you got to know your audience.
Hmm.
That's like one of the first foundational things you really need to know is how do they consume content.
Hmm.
you know some people will sit through an hour and a half webinar. Some
Hmm.
people will never do it.
Right.
Some people will look at a webinar, see it's 90 minutes, and whoop, they're gone, and they haven't
Right.
even watched 2 minutes of it yet
Hmm.
because they don't have the ability to sit through a presentation that long.
Hmm.
Some people like to read more than they like to, like I remember things like when I, this is a little bit of confessional time, but back in the day when I was working on my corporate job many years ago, I didn't want videos. I did not want video content. Why? Because I was at work.
Right. You're sitting at a desk and you couldn't hear it.
And I could, well, if I'm sitting over here playing a training that's on something completely not work related, it's going to start looking, somebody's going to hear that.
Right.
It's going to look a little suspicious. Like,
This is
man,
why subtitles have become so popular on
correct,
videos, right?
correct. I'm like, can I still get it without actually, like, I just read it so I could watch this thing without having to hear the sound so nobody knows what I'm doing. That's why for me, if you had a long sales letter that I could just, even if it was a longer video, if you had it in written form,
Yeah.
I would do that all day long because I could sit at my desk and read that and no
Right.
one would know any wiser. Like,
Yeah.
because no one knew what was going on. I could just, do the old flip to the next tab if somebody walked in.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
But-
because you were just doing research and scrolling, right?
Correct. I was researching. They just didn't know what I was researching. But so you have to think about, how do they like to consume? Are they readers? Do they like to read? Do they like to watch video? Do they have the patience to sit through a long presentation, or do they not? How old are they? So, and what does that apply to? Well, different age groups are in different social media platforms.
Right.
Like middle age and up, people are on Facebook. There's a lot of people on Facebook. People in their 20s, a lot of TikTok, a lot of more Instagram, a lot of things like that. I mean, there's a lot of people who are more of a corporate setting who are looking for jobs and doing things from an organizational standpoint. They'll be on LinkedIn more. Right. So you got to know, who are your people? How do they like to consume content? Where are they? What types of platforms are they on? And how can I best get my message through to them? Because, I've always used this analogy, and this is one that, I don't know, maybe it's just because I grew up on a farm. And when I was growing up, I used to go fishing a lot as a kid. It was kind of like one of those things that, it got me out of chores a lot because, David, you need to go do this. I was going to go fishing. All right, go ahead. And I had a little 4-wheeler that I could go ride around the country neighborhoods to the various people's farms and go fishing and different things. And so I would, go fishing. But what is, when you go to these different ponds, not every pond has the same fish in it.
Right.
Some of them would have bass, some of them had bullhead, some of them had bluegill. I mean, there's all these different, where I grew up, those were some of the main types of fish in ponds. And depending on which pond you're in, you needed to have very different bait.
Yeah. You
needed to fish very differently, because bass, you have to cast and you have to have something that moves, because they don't want just a worm. They like to play. They don't like just a worm dangling down, hanging there. Like a bullhead or a catfish, they just like to swim around the bottom. And if you drop it,
stumble across it,
stumble across it, and hey, worm, I want it. And then you got it. But a bass, you got to be right along where the brush is, or right along where the weeds are, and not get stuck with your line, and know how to cast right next to it, and then drag that sucker right along, and they'll strike on it. But you have to know, and that's what I learned, is you have to know your audience. And in those days, my audience were fish. Which sounds silly, but that's what it was. My audience was fish, and I needed to know how to speak to them. I needed to know how to communicate in a way that they would listen. Well, the same thing is true with your marketing. The same thing is true with what it is that you're doing in your campaigns. You need to be able to speak in a way that your audience will hear you.
Right.
What is the audience where are they? And again, if I knew that this pond was a pond that had bass fish in it, okay. I knew what I was dealing with. And, we as neighbors all kind of knew, like, oh, that pond has this, that pond, we knew.
Everybody went on a tour, right?
Right. We all kind of knew the neighborhoods around us. We're like, okay, and depending on how far my dad would let me go on the 4-wheeler, sometimes a few miles I would get yelled at, like, what were you doing way over there? Like, I was 10 miles from home. Like, okay, fishing, Dad. Anyway, but you would go and you would just learn, and you would understand. Well, again, you're not going to want to advertise something to a 20-year-old on LinkedIn.
Right.
On LinkedIn, you do a lot of work on LinkedIn, Chris. Who is it that you're targeting? What is the audience that you're primarily focused on?
Yeah, I'm looking for executives, looking for, management, looking for people that are decision makers in a company.
Right, exactly. Because you're really part of what you do is you market a lot of things to organizations. And so you're looking for managers, executives, leaders of organizations that you can sell your leadership training services to.
Yep.
Well, that's where they are.
Yeah.
And so you got to know your audience. You got to know what works for them. And for you, it's then, how do you get in front of them? How do you speak to them? How do you get, How do you talk to them? Because once they hear you talk, then they realize, maybe we should get to know this guy because he actually could help us. And yet on other types of platforms, it's very, very different. Something on YouTube is a great platform for anything that needs to be demonstrated. And so especially if you have a physical product and you want to demonstrate how that product works and how that's why product demonstrations are so powerful on video.
Yeah.
Like going on YouTube and doing things like that. That's a powerful, powerful thing because you show it. Or even if I have, ways that if you can show how a certain strategy works, doesn't even need to be a product. We can show how a strategy works. That's a great way to do on video. So there's ways like that. You got to know how can I best describe and showcase what it is that I do.
Yeah.
And then where are those people so that I can get that message in the most effective way in front of them.
Yeah, I think this is really important because, in my experiences, right, I think like you said, I shied away from LinkedIn for a long time, ignorantly, I'll say, but also I think LinkedIn has also gotten a lot better over the years, by the way. But what I realized, I'm like, I can put the same piece of content on LinkedIn as I do on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And I hear crickets on Facebook and Instagram when it comes to leadership training and development, right? But it's the audience. It's not the content, it's the audience. It's that whole idea that, is your marketing, are you putting yourself in the right places? And I know we're not talking about product pricing and things, but we've talked about before where you can take a bottle of water and go, well, I can buy a case of water at the grocery store for like $5, or I can buy a bottle of water at the airport for like 10.
Yeah. Can you buy it for a case for $5?
Well, I don't even know what that is now.
Previously, a couple of years ago.
So now that bottle of water at the airport is probably like 15 or 20.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is it's the placement, right? It's where are you showing? Because to your point, there are kids who have made millions of dollars doing toy reviews on YouTube, right? Because they're doing those demonstrations. There are gamers who are making millions of dollars on Facebook advertising and things because they're playing video games on YouTube that people are watching. But if I went and just tried to sell leadership training to executives on YouTube, it might be a place where I highlight some of my speaking or some of my, things where they can get a glimpse of me. But that's more like after they've connected with me, like on LinkedIn or at a networking event or something I've done, then they might go watch that. But that's no executive that I know is out there searching for leadership training on YouTube.
Right.
But there's a lot of people, buddies of mine, it's like they fix their cars a lot and they're like, all I do is go look at YouTube videos, is how to fix this door hinge, how to fix this, how to fix like and to your point, it's the right place. You have mechanics out there, you have, you have even like landscaping companies or whatever showing off their work, showing what they do, because that's where people, it's that search engine that people are looking for, right? So I think this is just because I think this is an important point because people, especially starting out and early on, I think we feel like we have to be everywhere on all these channels. And we haven't thought about this first step of what you're talking about, of knowing your audience, knowing where they are.
Right. And that'll save you a lot of time. Because even yesterday, as you're saying that, yesterday our garage door wouldn't open. And so where did I go?
YouTube.
You knew exactly where I was going. Yes, I'm going on YouTube because I'm looking up like, how do I, on my garage door, what do I need to do to get my, I'm searching but specifically by exactly what was going wrong, and doggone it, I fixed it simply on a YouTube video. And but that's exactly it. I mean, but that's where you go. And people, I think subconsciously even know this is where I go if I need this. That's where I go if I need that. I don't go over here if I don't need that. And so a lot of this is just simply understanding this from the producer side instead of a consumer side. Well, if my customers are going here to search for things, that's where I need to be.
Yeah.
And I need to deliver it. And then once you know your audience, then you need to know your product. Okay. How does your product need to be shown for people to want to buy it? So, and this kind of depends on how complex your solution is. If you are offering something that needs some explaining, like, I offer a course on doing book funnels,
Right.
as we talked about. And it's not something that I can explain in 3 minutes.
Right.
It takes a little bit more time for me to unpack it and to show you exactly how this works and why a book funnel can really be an amazing tool for you and make you a lot of money from selling your book. And
Right.
it does, it works. It is a tool that, one of the clients that we built a book funnel for, 4 years later, they're still running ads to that thing because they're making money. And
Yep.
I don't know what their numbers are because that's something on their end, but at this point, they've got to make $1 million plus from this thing.
Yeah.
And so, but
which, by the way, is a great indicator, folks. If somebody keeps running an ad, no matter what kind of a funnel it is, if they're I'll say this, and the caveat is if they're a smart business person, they're going to keep squeezing that as orange as long as they get juice, right? Like,
correct. And it just tells you can say, well, book funnels are dead. Well, then why do they keep running ads to the book funnel I created for them?
This is a sidebar, but I think this is important for this part too, David. I just read recently, it was something that Dan Kennedy from, his marketing background said is he used to have to fight clients who always wanted to create new things when something that has been around for even like 7-9 years was still working. He said, I fought clients more than anything to leave it alone. Like, and he helped people with TV infomercials, those 30-minute infomercials in the middle of the night. Like some of those would run for like 9 years, he said, and they kept selling and selling and selling millions of dollars of the product. And then people be like, well, I'm bored with it, so let's change it. And he's like, no, it's working.
You're bored with money.
Right. But he said that's a problem for a lot of entrepreneurs is we get bored with our own stuff and so look at your numbers. If you keep creating things just because you have this creative itch, but it's not producing, versus finding something that does work, even if it's boring to you, stay with the boring thing, right? Like, so find like you said, that I've seen that guy you're talking about, I've seen his Facebook ads over and over and over again over the last 4 years. And I constantly, he shows up in my feed, and he has to be working because he's a smart businessman.
Right. Well, and again, you can either be bored and rich or you can have lots of ideas and be broke.
Right.
Because we've seen both of those.
The starving artist, right?
Right. Well, yeah, you can, I got to create something new. Well, that didn't work again. Now it doesn't work again because you screwed up what was working.
Right.
So understand that. So yes. So think about that. What does your product need for you to be able to sell it? Do you need to demonstrate it? Does it need a detailed explanation? Is there an educational process that needs to happen before someone will buy it? Because that is a lot of the questions that you have to ask yourself. Do I need to do not land? This is what marketing ultimately is. Everyone thinks marketing is, oh, it's sleazy, it's icky. No, it's not. It's education. Marketing is education. What I'm doing is I'm showing you through an educational process that this is where you're having a problem in your life. This is what's causing the problem. This is why these other types of solutions are not going to work. You're not going to get the answer that you want. And this is why you need to do it this way, because this is the way that will actually get you a solution. This is the way that will actually work for you, because I know this area. I know it well. If you want this solved, this is what you need to do. And by the way, now that's when you can make your offer and say, I have a solution for you. This is what it looks like, and this is how much it costs. And so that's all it is. So you have to understand how complex is the solution that I'm offering, and how much education has to go out there. How long do I need to spend explaining this so people get it?
Right.
Because if I don't spend enough time on it, if I just say, well, people don't want to watch things. And I've seen, this is somebody that I've worked with who has an amazing program, and it's incredible. And some other people got into his head and said, you need to make these videos, your sales videos, really super short, because no one wants to stick around more than 30 minutes. And so he goes on and does this marketing presentation of the same program he's been selling successfully for a long time and sold nothing. Spent thousands of dollars in ads to promote people to watch a training and sold squat. Why? Because we need to do it differently. I'm like, no, you don't. No,
you need to do what you were doing.
You need to do what you were doing because you have a process that needs some explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Just because people's attention spans are short doesn't matter. You have a process that requires explanation. You can't just slam it all into a crunch down time frame where you skipped several of the steps and several of the parts, and now no one's getting it. No one's understanding what it is that you can do for them. They don't see the process clearly, and so no one's buying.
The attention span thing is a fallacy anyway, if you really think about it, because I have teenagers who will sit there on their phones for hours if we let them, watching TikTok videos and reels and all these things on dumb things. But you know, my son, he's into baseball. He'll watch a lot of baseball videos. My daughter, she watches, you know, they all have whatever interests us, we'll put our attention to. That's so the fallacy is that people have short attention. Now, we do on things that don't connect with us. But if something captures our attention, something that's interesting, something that we need, if I have a problem, whether it be health or a garage door opener or whatever,
it's solved.
Right. I mean, I was on a road trip recently and I listened to a 4-hour podcast episode.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how often do I listen to something that's that long? Rarely, if ever. But I was very interested in the topic. I had the time in the car, and I felt like it was a great opportunity for me to learn from the person that was doing the episode. So the whole attention span thing, we have to be careful, folks, not to just generalize, because people that are passionate. There's a younger guy that I know in our community. He's really into classic cars, and he's winning like major awards for a restored car that he did. I guarantee you that guy reads the car magazines. He's on the car websites. He's what, because that's his passion. It's his hobby and it's his passion. So we can't just make these general, broad, sweeping statements. We need to truly think about, once again, attention spans are what people are interested in. Not so if people are not watching your 30-second reel or your 30-minute presentation, you need to understand, is it really the right audience? Do they have that pain or that need?
Exactly. And I'll be honest with you. I still believe that if someone has a big problem in life that's really bothering them and they're really hungry to get a solution, they will sit through a 90-minute presentation if it's going to get them what they want.
Yeah.
But if they're 15 minutes into the presentation, they're going, this is nonsense, this is not helping, they'll leave. But if your presentation is valuable and they're like, wait a minute, I think this is it, I think this is what I need, they're going to stick.
Well, there's a financial advisor friend of mine.
They want to solve their problem. And like, if this means I have to sit here for an hour, I'll do it.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, there's a financial advisor that I've become friends with the last couple of years, and he targets the 55 and older age group for estate planning and making sure their finances are in order. And he has people, 25, 50 people coming at a time to his live seminars to talk about this. And then they set, from there, they set an appointment to talk, with him one-on-one.
Right.
That's a funnel, right?
Right.
But he has to advertise to get them in the room. He confirms their appointments to come. He gets them in the room and presents. Then he gets them to sign up for an appointment. That's his process. But if he just did a bunch of TikTok ads, because that's his big. I was actually talking to him yesterday. He's like, he has wasted so much money and time in the last year on marketing schemes that marketing agencies have told him, well, you should do this, this, and this. And he goes, I've done this successfully for 30 years. Now I'm struggling with this digital thing. He's like, I think I'm going to go away from the digital more next year. And I'm like, you probably need to, because what was working?
Right. And that's exactly it. Is like, you get all these people with all their ideas and they confuse the situation and they make it into something that it isn't. And here we are.
Yeah.
So now that, once you know your audience, you know who they are. And like you said, you don't want to go out. The guy's got a system built where he's successfully bringing in clients. Why do I now need to go on TikTok? Know your audience. They're not over there. They're over here. Like, that's just the whole point. But a marketing agency comes with a new shiny idea. It convinces you that, it's all over here. Like, no, not everyone is over there.
Yeah.
Some people are over there, but not everyone. The question is the other person's audience over there? And they're clearly not. Because, 60-year-old people typically aren't sitting there watching TikToks all day.
Right. I actually heard one more story before we move on to this, but there was a guy who said that he was doing radio ads successfully for his business. And he said that the radio station didn't want him to put like a code on his announcements, like mention this ad when you call our office and you get a 10% discount or something. He said they didn't want him. He said one company didn't want him to do it at all, but they let him. Another company said, we cut that part out of your radio ad. He said, well, then pull my ad, because he wanted to track,
Right.
was he getting results? And he said the problem is these like radio stations in that case, or marketing agencies, they don't want to show you the numbers of success. They just want to keep you, so you have to watch out for these things.
Right. Exactly. That tells you a lot. If they tell you that they don't want that on there, then they don't have confidence that they're going to get much from you.
Right. But they want you to keep spending money month after month or whatever. Right.
They're going to quickly understand that this ain't going anywhere.
Right.
So anyway, so once you know that, once you know your audience, once you have a good understanding of what it takes to sell, if you sold this before, what do you have to do to get somebody to the point where they get it and they say yes, So now you have to choose the funnel that makes the most sense based on those things. So, for example, if you have something that is a little bit of a complicated problem and it's going to take a little bit of time to explain the process and to go through it and show them this is what you need to do, this is the solution, this is the answer, then you probably need something like a webinar, that where you can do a presentation and you can do a longer, or if you're doing it in person, a place where you can have an in-person presentation. But a webinar is really just an in-person presentation online.
Right.
It does the same thing. But you have to go through an explanation. So you need a vehicle that allows you to unpack the answer and the solution that you've created. Or if it can't be a webinar, maybe a long sales letter, where you take essentially the webinar content and you do it in written form. And you get a lot of people reading it. Like, I said earlier, sometimes people are sitting in an office, can't watch this video. Do you have it written for them, or do you have the subtitles? Because I have to keep the volume off, but I'd like to know. I'd like to follow this. So you do that, or maybe you do it over an extended email sequence where you're educating people on. You get them on your email list and do that, and you're sending them a lot of emails to educate them. So those are things that you need to understand. Like, you need to understand, what do I need to sell this thing? What do I need to explain this thing? And then build your funnel accordingly. And then maybe your product is maybe you have a mini course on something. Maybe you have a short little mini course that just solves one simple problem, and it really isn't that complex. You do not need a 90-minute webinar to explain this thing. That's silly. That's just overkill. You're just talking in circles at that point. Right. So all you need then is a short little sales page or a short little sales video, and you're done. You don't need it. I mean, we have little mini course products that we've created that all it is one little short little sales page, explains it. Here's how you can buy this, program. It's cheap, it's simple, it's easy. Here you go. And so forth. So that can use a completely different funnel. You don't need the webinar then. You don't need all those things because your product doesn't require it.
Right. Well, I was going to say, I mean, if you're selling a $5,000 course or program, that's going to be, that's a big price point that you're going to have to move, ease people into in one way, versus like it's a $27 mini course training kind of thing. Like you and I, we've bought those over the years where it's like, that sounds interesting. It's a topic that I'm looking into learning something about. And
for like $27,
I don't need
an explanation. I just need, okay, that's what it is. Oh yeah, I have that specific problem and you have an answer. Great. Let's go.
Right. It's like, because I'm sitting there thinking, well, that's a no-brainer to me. Right. And that's the thing, right? Is that some of this, I think about this, David, as you're talking about this, that I haven't thought of it as a funnel like I probably need to, but I have a leadership training program for companies, and I literally, I'll say probably about a month ago, I sent out about 5 or 6 emails to some specific companies and said, hey, I created a new flyer about my new program that I thought you might be interested in. These are people I'm, connected to. Sent that out. And I have 2 companies that I'm in talks with currently about bringing that program into their business. But it took an email with a PDF flyer, right, about the program at a high level. we set up a discovery call to talk about it more and see if it's something that would be a good fit for them. And then it's going to turn into, a high ticket sale for a company working with leaders for about 18 months.
Right. That's your marketing funnel.
That's my marketing funnel. That's 3 steps.
Right.
And that was literally not an automated email sequence. That
Right.
was reaching out to leaders. I've done this also by, reaching out to associations where I've said, hey, do you ever need speakers? Because I'm a leadership coach and trainer. I speak. And I've had, I've earned a lot of money from companies because an association brought me in. They paid me to come speak to their people at a conference. I'm actually getting ready to do this again next week. Going to go speak at a conference. Going to share, my topic and show my expertise, right, in a presentation. And then I'm going to give them actually a copy of my book, and I'm going to share my program offer to them, and I offer them a free discovery call to just talk about their strategy and where are they in their business. It's not going to be complicated,
Right.
but if I try to do something completely off the rails for that audience, it's not going to work, right? But I'm in the room with the right audience to give them the presentation and give them the invitation to schedule a call with me and to talk about my offer.
Exactly. And it's just, those are all the steps that that you learn that works.
Right.
So for you to try and sell this on a short little sales page, it's not going to work.
Right.
Oh, you need to do TikTok video, Chris.
Right.
What? Like, you're just going to waste a lot of time, effort, and money screwing around over there. And it's not going to work for you because that's not where your audience is. And it's not how your audience needs to be educated to know the value of what you offer. And just to kind of hit on what you're saying, the last thing that, where we, if you have an expensive product, like you were mentioning, Chris, then typically there has to be like another step in the process where, we used to, sell in my last business, we had a author coaching program, which became very, very popular. And we would sell it 2 steps. One would be a webinar, which would get people to apply for the program, which would then in turn turn into conversations with people on our sales team who would talk to them to discover, is this a good fit for you? Is this something that makes sense for you? And then those sales conversations would turn into customers. And that's kind of similar to what you're doing. You're going out, doing the initial education process through your email and your little PDF that you've created that describes what the program was about. Then you get on a call with them, and then they turn into customers at the end. It's the same process, just a little bit different format. But because it's a higher ticket purchase, people want to talk to somebody.
Right.
Like, you're not going to usually just go out and spend $5,000-$10,000 on something unless you have unless you actually have more of a comfort level and you could talk to somebody and this is real, this is okay, I'm good, like this is all right, I'm where I need to be on all of this. And so you need usually to have a little bit of that sitting there before you're ready to do the jump. And so that's, again, you got to understand your customer. You got to understand the buying process of like, okay, my customer isn't going to watch a 30-second TikTok video and spend $5,000. I mean, those two are not.
But that video could lead somebody in the right audience, right? That video could pique their interest to then go to an extended training or some more content, right?
Right. But again, that's where and that's why all of these marketing funnels can work.
Yeah.
Do people make money selling things on TikTok videos? Yes. Do people make money selling things on webinars? Yes. Do people do it on long sales letters? Yes. Email sequences? Yes. It's knowing when to deploy the right strategy for the right situation, for the right customer, so that it makes sense. Anybody that tells you that one of these things is dead, the only reason people go out there and say things like webinars are dead or challenges are dead, it's because they're trying to sell you something else. The only reason they're saying those things are dead and don't work is because they have something else, some other slick idea they're trying to sell you. This is the new way of doing everything. You got to do it now. And they're just.
Well, here's the thing, right? This is kind of one of these funny things. I was actually going to use this illustration, and I realized, backing up, he did what you just said. Like, so Russell Brunson, who's very famous for ClickFunnels, right?
Yep.
He did a lot of webinars to ultimately get ClickFunnels going, and has been very successful, to give him credit. But what was his thing was websites are dead,
Yes.
and he was training people on funnels. Well,
Last
funnels are
time,
just website.
right. Websites, last I checked, not dead.
Right. And
Not
and
dead
but
at
but
all.
but but think about that. You're right. I mean, his whole thing was he was basically throwing rocks at websites. And what he was ultimately saying was a website as a brochure that doesn't lead people to action isn't working like it used to. And he wasn't wrong about that, right?
Right.
In a lot of ways. But there are still plenty of businesses out there, and depends on which market you're in, an industry. There's still plenty of businesses out there that they don't need advanced funnel steps, to sell products. They sometimes it's I'm looking for a concrete company and or a landscape company or a plumber or whatever, and I don't need them to have a three-step, funnel process with upsells and downsells. I just need to know, about this company. What kind of work do they
Yeah.
do? How can I get in touch with them? That is more of a brochure type website, but that's what you need for that type of business, not a ClickFunnels, book funnel type process. That's very valid. And if you're looking at, trying to sell a certain product.
Right. Exactly. So again, I'm joining Todd Brown and wholeheartedly saying there is no such thing as a bad marketing funnel, really. I mean, unless you completely screw it up. Like
Right.
there's bad execution on
Right.
marketing funnels.
Right.
Like people
But
would
the,
come to
but the
me with
type of funnel can still work depending if you're in
the
the
type,
right, doing the right
right.
things.
The type still works. And I've had people come to me and say, "Hey, I created a book funnel, but it's not working." And then I look at the book funnel and go, "Well, I'm not confused as to why it's not working, because this is a disaster." I'm like, and I ain't fixing your mouse. Nope, no, because they only wanted to pay me a couple $100 to fix it. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
like, bye.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get sucked into that hole, and you aren't going to
Well,
pay.
and to that point, a lot of people, right? This is where business gets complicated and people struggle is they might have had the right steps in place, but if they don't know how to write good sales copy, then that's going to hinder. You could have the right funnel steps,
Yeah.
but a bad messaging, right? And so that's a part of this, and that's even with my leadership training stuff, right? To me, I started to go, well, what are all the advanced digital stuff? And then I finally got like I had to stop and go, well, what has worked for me?
Right.
And what has worked for me is reaching out to people I'm connected to or somebody that, has my audience and finding ways to get in front of them. And it's been very organic versus this highly digital and scaled like Facebook ads and all these things. It's like, no, it's been relational connections, but that's that industry, right? Or that's that especially. But once again, selling a different type of product would require something completely different. And
Right.
my way of that wouldn't work. It wouldn't scale.
Right. Correct. So again, just to kind of wrap everything up, you know, all of these funnels can work. It's not that there's a bad funnel. It's not that these strategies have all been proven to work in the right situation with the right product to the right audience.
Yeah.
Don't let anybody come and tell you that, oh, you have to be on here, especially if you already have something that's working.
Yeah.
It's working for a reason because you have the right bait on the right hook in the right pond. You've
That's
put
as
the right
simple as it is, really, right?
right. I mean, it is. And again, I could go and put my, bass lures on a pond full of catfish. I'm going to be there all day casting and not catch a thing, because it's not that everything is wrong or that no fish don't bite on hooks anymore. Like, they do. Well, but that's how, people say with marketing, right? In
Right.
business, nobody's buying online anymore. No, like, really? You sure?
I
Like,
think Amazon's figured that one out.
yeah, I don't know that I agree. It's just a matter of you don't have the right pieces in place. So,
Yeah.
that's why we do what we do with DLG. That's why we put together the training. That's why we have the coaching, because we're trying to help you get the right message to the right audience and to get it presented in the right way that people will buy from you. And it can take a little work to get it all perfected, to get it all massaged, to get it all figured out. But once you do, then you're playing with gas. So
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to say. That's why I get excited about what we're doing with our Design Launch Grow program, is because there's a lot of epiphanies, let's say, of, oh my gosh, I'm just trying to do what somebody else said I should do. But if, we really help people think strategically. And some of my favorite coaching calls, David, are like, have you thought about doing this to do that? And they're like, oh my gosh. And it's so much simpler in many cases than, most people tend to make it just because they think they're supposed to do a certain
Right.
thing that somebody else out there says. And so,
Somebody else said this was the magic bullet, so I need to do that.
right.
Okay.
I mean, I know in your case, I mean, you've saved our clients thousands of dollars on a couple of ideas of, well, you don't even need that thing because this is really how you're going to reach people and help people. And it's like, so we can, with our program, what we're trying to do, right, is not just help you make money, but even save you money by not doing the wrong steps that we're talking about today. It's really thinking strategically. And I think that's one of the most exciting opportunities that we have on our coaching calls is really helping people see things differently and say, you know what, you've got a good product and I know you can help people, but you're just you're in the wrong pond with the wrong bait. And let's work on that. And
Right.
then when that gets fixed, it's like people are like, oh my gosh, can't believe that. Well, it's working now. Well, yeah, because we've got these things fine tuned and tweaked. So folks, if you need help with that type of thing, like you're frustrated because you've got a book or a course or a training program, and you're like, I just can't get people to buy. I can't, get clients or customers. Well, it's all about what we're talking about today. And so check out designlaunchgrow.com and we will help you look at all these pieces and make sure that you're putting the right bait in front of the right fish in the right pond. So check that out and we'd love to help you out. So until next time, we will see you soon. I hope you have a great rest of your day.